Hans Niemann ignites fire into the chess world. His mission is to prove that he is innocent and he has not cheated in over-the-board chess. This mission seems to be super difficult because it's very hard to convince the paranoid chess world that you are innocent. In one of his recent episodes, to complete his mission, he went to Russia to play in Airflood Moscow Open, and he managed to play very, very good. But in the same city, in Moscow, he decided to organize a chess match with one of his rivals, Daniel Dubov, a player from Russia, which denied to play against Hans Niemann in FIDE World Blitz Championship in New York. The Russian player didn't play against the American player in New York, but the American player come to Russia in Moscow to play against Daniel Dubov. But why Daniel didn't play against Hans? Because simply he thought that Hans is a cheater, or he lied so much and he didn't want to face Hans. But Hans dared him to play in over-the-board chess, to come to the chess board as a man and to settle everything down at the chess board. And now in 7th and 8th of March 2025, they played a blitz match, 18 game, and in the 13th game of the match, at first 12 game, Daniel Dubov was up in the match with 3 points ahead. He was 3 points ahead and there is only 6 game remaining. So it seems like that Daniel is going to win this match very easily. We are going to take a look at the 13th game of this match, which Hans has the white pieces. And let's see what's Hans going to do in this game. Hans has the white pieces and he starts with the king's pawn move. Daniel plays e5. We have the Italian opening, one of the openings that many players are playing, and Hans played it very exclusively in this match and in other games also. And Daniel is always playing this bishop e7, like he's not developing his bishop to c5. He's somehow, his pet line is this bishop e7, castle, castle, and rook e1. White is not playing c3 in this kind of variations because black can match c3 with d5, and there will be a d3 weakness for the white camp. So white plays a4 in this position, bishop b6 and knight to d2, bishop takes c4, knight takes c4 and h6. Black is trying to simplify the position and to come to equality. Bishop d2, white is planning to expand on the queen side. And now a5 is a reasonable move for black, but Daniel says just I'm playing rook e8, b4 and bishop f8. My simple plan is to play d5. I'm going to overprotect the e5 pawn and I'm going to play d5. Probably white should have played b5, but then knight d7, knight g6. Who knows what's going to happen? But Hans plays knight d3. Probably he wants to stop d5, but he plays d5 anyway. b5 and knight to d4. Now the tension is rising in the center of the board, and e takes d5. Simply knight takes d5 is equalizing for black, but Dubov in 2 or 3 games in this match took on f3, and after queen f3 he played e4. In one of the games, Hans took on e4 and he eventually went into a bad position and he lost the game. But in this game, Hans played a better move, queen to e2, and now bishop c5. Daniel is a player who is always playing for initiative in his games and he wants to take control over the game. Rook to d1, a5 or bishop c3 probably was better, but after rook d1, bishop takes e3, f takes e3, e takes d3, c takes d3. This is a very critical position, and here black should have played the move a6 or queen takes d5. Both of these moves were good, but a6 specifically was a better try. Knight takes d5 is also good, but after e4, you need to play very precisely. Something like rook e6 or a6 might probably still hold for black, but he played knight to e7, but from now on white will gradually improve his position. Bishop to c3 coming into the long diagonal. This bishop is for sure better than this knight, and the rest of the game is like white is improving move by move. He plays e5. Okay, it's some positions computer thinks that black is okay, but in over-the-board chess, in human games, this is simply much better position for white. He plays d4 and f6, a wrong decision. Rook a c8 with the idea of c5. I mean, who puts his rook on c8 when the line is just closed. Probably rook d8 or something like that. But here Dubov just played f6. He wants to break open the center. He wants to get rid of these pawns. But suddenly queens to c2. This diagonal is weakened. And here is a very, very big mistake by Dubov. He plays queen e6, which is a losing move. He should have played queen c5, and here plays rook takes e5. He's just going to win the pawn. This position is still better for white because of this lying diagonal. For example, queen b3, rook d3. This is what engine says, and after rook d7, white is better because of a lot of pressure on the black's king. But game goes on. But in the game, Dubov plays queen e6, and can you find a winning move in this position for white? It's of course rook f1. But the idea is to play rook f6 in response to anything from black. It's a very, very interesting option. But okay, Hans just played queen e4. Still white is much, much better. Probably is close to winning. He just pushes, he takes the pawns. Now he's completely winning. And he comes back. This bishop is always a better piece. He has a passer on the A line. So this is going to be over very soon. Very soon. Unless Hans, as in all of the games, make a fatal mistake. In this position, he plays queen g6. He has 1:30 on the clock and Dubov has only 6 seconds. But Hans makes a mistake. And after queen c5, he is worse. Knight f4 and suddenly knight to d3. This was the theme of all of the match. I mean, Hans was better in many games, but Dubov in time scrambles managed to become on top and make things in his own way. After rook d1, knight f2, Dubov won an exchange, and this is a very, very hard position for playing, especially for the black pieces. He's better according to computer, but he is under a lot of pressure. This bishop on this diagonal, rook c1, with the idea if bishop moves queen to c2 was a way to go for Dubov. But he doesn't play that. He played queen g7 and now e7. Computer suggests that in this position queen h5, black can hold, but he just simply takes the pawn. He didn't understood what's the reason behind this, but suddenly Hans sacrifices bishop on g7. A very, very good move. He should have taken. He should have taken with king takes g7, and after queen g4, king h7, rook takes e7. And after rook takes e7, white is better. He probably wins, but these two rooks can also create some drawing chances. But in the game, Dubov, in a strange decision, he decided to not take, and after bishop e5, now it's very hard to defend this position because rook g3 is coming at any cost. He plays queen f7 because the position is very hard to play. Queen f7, king g1, and now white is winning. Rook g3 check, and here he could have played rook f3, but okay, bishop takes e3 is winning also, and here rook g7, he wins the queen, and he wins the game. So Hans Niemann won this game. So he's now 2 points down in the match, but he managed to win the games 14 and 15, and he managed to equalize the match. This was crazy. The match was equalized on 7.5 to 7.5. And in the 16th game of the match, Dubov managed to win a game. And in the 17th game, Hans managed to win a game. And it's now 8.5 to 8.5. And everything goes to the last game and to the last moves of the last game. In this position, after a long fight and lots of mistakes, both players arrive this position. It's a little bit hard for black to make a draw because white is going to pick all of these pawns. Probably king c8 with the idea of knight d7 would have held the game with good defense. But in this position, Hans played g5. And Dubov, with 7 seconds on the clock, found a brilliant idea playing g4, trying to create a passed pawn. In the end game, it's very, very critical to create a passed pawn. And here, in a very strange decision, of course, understandable, because Hans has only 8 seconds, he took on g4. Taking on h4 would lead to a very equal ending. And after this, black can equalize the position because at every stage, black has knight to g5 and white cannot take because this pawn will be a queen. Imagine if this happens. If this happens, black will queen and at least black has a draw. Okay, of course, in this position, black wins the game. But so this is not possible for Dubov to play. So in this position, for example, this will be a draw like this. he should not take and he should play knight h2, and this position will be a draw. But Hans made a fatal mistake in this position. He took here, and the problem is that this pawn has no power. If you go to g3, even if you go to g2, then white will play knight d2, and in the game here Dubov won the game. Hans lost on time, but of course this position is losing. And after this game there was no handshake. Dubov left the board and Hans was just surprised after his loss. He was stunned by how he lost this game, because he just lost in few seconds. He fought very well in this game. He managed to equalize the match despite his despite everyone thinking that it's over. Dubov is going to win very simply, but Hans managed to come back to the game. And till this moment that I'm recording this video, we don't have the lie detector test. Dubov is going to ask Hans a question. We don't know what is the question. We don't know what is the outcome. There is no news about it. But what I learned from this match is that Hans is a very good player. He's a very fighting player. He fights for his dignity. He fights to prove that he is a very, very strong player. Sometimes he goes for revenge. Sometimes he says things that other people didn't like, or even I don't like, but he is a fighting player. He's a fighter. He's going to fight nevertheless what happens. And this is a very, very good spirit. We need this kind of spirit in the chess world. Not everybody should be super polite and not saying anything. Some people needs to be like this, like in all of other sports. But I guess everybody should have been convinced that he's not a cheater. Dubov is a very, very great blitz player. And in this match, it was a tied match. Everything was happened in the last seconds of the last match, and nothing proved by this match. Hans for sure is not a cheater in this match. I'm not sure if there is any other doubts about his online chess. I have no doubts, but some players still have doubts, like Magnus, Hikaru, and others. But I will just say congrats to him and congrats to Dubov also. I hope that these two players will face each other in other tournaments and Dubov play against Hans. And let's see what happens in the lie detector test. What do you ask Hans if you're in Dubov's situation? What do you ask him? And what's your question? Write down in the comments. And please like the video if you like this kind of context, to help me and to support me. And remember always to enjoy chess and life.